It's time for me to get a little bit more personal with you. I mean, you've seen a lot of my content. You might know some of my story, you might not. You might just think that I'm some guy on the internet that preaches a bunch of health advice and talks about keto and talks about fasting. And some of you that have been with me from inception of this channel know my story. You guys know my background. But I also recognize that this channel is growing fast, and a lot of people that join this channel later on might not know what I've been through. They might not know that I weighed 280 pounds at one point. They might not know that I have a healthcare admin background. They might not know why I got into this in the first place. So what a spectacular time to be able to share my story and talk a little bit more about who I am as a person and why I truly do this. And not from some like self-fulfilling preaching way, but to truly help you develop a comprehension of why I am here in front of this camera doing what I'm doing. This channel has grown astronomically fast. We just hit 1 million subscribers, and this is a huge deal. So why not break down the true history of this channel? You see, before I ever had any aspirations of doing anything on YouTube or doing anything on the internet really, I was somewhat of a regular guy. I mean, I was an athlete in high school. I was an athlete in school in general. I played rugby, I ran cross country. I was a pretty in shape person. You see, once I got out of school, life sort of took over. Career, finance, everything like that. It all just became much more important than staying in shape, and I had different priorities. You see, I actually met my wife in high school. I've been with my wife for a very long time. I've been with her since she was 14 years old and I was 16 years old. And being with my wife for such a long period of time, I'm able to reflect back and recognize on so many different changes that I've made. And my focus after getting out of school and after playing sports was really on providing for my family and doing the best that I could to achieve success in my career, achieve success for my family, a whole different idea of success. It had nothing to do with nutrition. So I got into the world of healthcare. And a long story short, I was an executive recruiter and a physician recruiter for a period of time. And then I went into the lab services industry. So I managed a lot of physicians in the world of ancillary lab services, meaning what I did is I provided lab services to physicians. So what I did is I was able to provide physicians with the ability to do like salivary cortisol testing way back before it was popular. And I was able to provide other what are called ancillary lab services to concierge physicians. Now, let me break down what this really means. The doctors that I was working with were concierge doctors. What concierge doctors are doctors that work with patients on a cash pay basis. So they were working with pretty affluent patients, patients that could afford to pay a premium to have a physician on retainer. Now that may sound like this highfalutin thing, but when you're actually talking about working with those kinds of doctors, these are the doctors that actually did care the most about their patients, because if they didn't perform for their patients wouldn't pay them. So me working with these doctors and providing services and managing a lot of these physicians, I really did learn a lot of very important key things. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a chiropractor, I don't pretend to be one. I don't pretend to be a medical expert, and I don't really want to be one. You see, when I was going through this, I was an unhealthy person. I was 280 pounds. I was overweight. I should have been one of those patients, but I wasn't. And you see, these doctors taught me things that I was able to apply into my life. So step one was modulating inflammation in my body. That's why the whole process of my career here on the internet started with talking about inflammation. Before I was ever talking about keto, before I was ever talking about fasting, I was talking about inflammation. I was known as the inflammation guy, but you guys all came in later on when I developed a name in the keto world, in the fasting world. But guess what? Inflammation and keto go hand in hand. So step one these doctors had me do was modulate inflammation, reduce inflammation in my body, eating the right kind of foods at the right time, learning which foods affected me. Okay, this was amazing. I lost a lot of weight that way. And then I found the next best common denominator was to go on the ketogenic diet. So yeah, I went on the ketogenic diet and I lost about 100 pounds following the keto diet and fasting. So here I am today promoting the ketogenic diet in a lot of ways, promoting fasting in a lot of ways, but guess what? I'm also promoting paleo. I'm also promoting other healthy lifestyles. I don't bash other lifestyles. That's not my style, but I do know what worked for me. And the reason that I say this is because there's been so many haters as this channel has grown. Thomas the keto guy, Thomas the fasting guy, oh, he's just an evangelical keto person. You know, it's not that way. That's not how it works. And if you actually know my story and you know my history and you know my medical background, then you know that that's not the case. I talk about this stuff because I know it works. And I talk about this stuff because I know it helps people. And man, when I go to the airport or when I go to events and I go on the street and I go to coffee shops and people approach me and tell me that they've lost 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 300 pounds utilizing the advice that I put there on the internet, that's what makes doing what I do worthwhile. So to be able to reach 1 million subscribers is just this first milestone. To know that I'm able to make an impact utilizing what I learned through my own experience. So you might be wondering, does Thomas follow a ketogenic diet today? Does Thomas follow an intermittent fasting protocol today? Well, guess what? I do and I don't, because I utilize what works for me at a given point in time. Sometimes I'm keto, sometimes I'm not. Why? Because I'm fat adapted. I'm keto adapted now. I don't always have to be on a ketogenic diet because I know that my mitochondria, my body is working in a fat adapted state. And yes, all the different health gurus out there and the fitness gurus are going to come out there and they're going to hate on that and they're going to say there's no such thing as fat adaptation and it's calories in, calories out. Okay, who cares? I know how my body is working now and I'm sharing that with you guys. And that's why I'm so happy to be able to grow this channel so much more. And the more that we get people on this boat and actually making changes and pioneering health in a way that works for them, the more that we can start to learn and the more that we can start to develop new systems and new processes to get the most out of our life. So this channel didn't just start from me having a healthcare background or having a medical background. See, it started as me wanting to get out of that healthcare world. I wanted out of that. I wanted to do something different. Okay? I had been in that world where it's all fixated on finance and it's all fixated on growing a business, and healthcare was just a small portion of what you actually thought about, even though it was the giant continuum of what you were actually working on and actually generating revenue from. I didn't like that anymore. So I set out on a mission. I said, I'm going to be on a magazine cover inside of a year, and I achieved that goal. And then I said, I'm going to be on 5 magazine covers, and I achieved that goal. And then I realized that the fitness industry wasn't really what I wanted. It wasn't that fun. Quite frankly, it was a narcissistic, really shallow, sick world that I hated. It was people that were all focused on trying to overcompensate from their insecurities that they had, and they weren't ever focused on health. They weren't ever focused on truly feeling good. So here I was, a guy that was happily married, had been with my wife for years and years and years, and over a decade, and I'm dealing with people that are trying to build their bodies to be single, flashy dudes. And that just wasn't me. Now, I have no problem with getting in shape to try to develop a family or develop a relationship with another person. That's totally fine. If you need to look good for the opposite sex or for the same sex or whatever, that's fine. That's totally on you. That's not the problem. The problem was that the actual focus was all wrong. It was all focused on how you could look and not how you could feel. And I realized that a gap really needed to be bridged between health and fitness. I noticed this huge divergence between what health was and what fitness was. And I realized that once those could actually come together, you could actually make something pretty cool. And organic and eating clean and non-GMO didn't need to be super granola and super nerdy. It could actually be pretty cool. It could actually be made into, quite frankly, a badass way of living. And that's exactly how this channel was born. So here we are today in the studio that 3 years ago I didn't think we'd have. We were shooting out of my house. All that amazing content way back when, for those of you that have been with me from day one, that was all filmed in my good old kitchen, driving my wife crazy. Dealing with the dogs in the background, making noise, dealing with all kinds of stuff, the heater kicking on and off. We used to always laugh about the gardeners. We couldn't shoot on Mondays because the gardeners would come in, they'd start up the weed whacker and we couldn't film. All the stuff that we were dealing with, and we realized one day, in order to bring amazing content, we needed to grow. We needed to take more risk, we needed to get a studio, we needed to make it fun. And that's what we're doing today. So the purpose of this video is to remind you that, guys, I'm human, okay? I'm not just a talking head on the internet. When you run into me on the street, you run into me in a coffee shop, first of all, say hi. But second of all, you'll realize that I'm a real person, okay? I have emotions and I have a reason for doing what I'm doing. And I don't talk about my history and my weight loss journey a whole lot because it doesn't define who I am. It's a process and it's something that I've learned from. And I encourage every single person here that is changing their life or has made any kind of change in their physical appearance to look at it the same way. That is just a small chunk of your life. What you are living in right now, what you are consuming right now, the choice that you make this very second is what defines who you are this very second. So thank you all for helping me reach 1 million subscribers. This is going to be the ultimate channel for performance, nutrition, everything you could possibly need, whether it's keto, fasting, or you name it. I'm always going to be here for you. I'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you again to 1 million more, and then 2 million more, and so on and so forth. See you soon.